Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 839, Richard and Gary here. We've got lots to talk about. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the mixed reality team, HoloLens team at Microsoft. An interesting story coming out about that and trouble there. So we'll be talking about that. Changes to the Windows Insider program. What does that mean? What we'll be getting, and some new features potentially getting for Windows 11. We'll be talking Peloton, Flutter, Meta, EV news, and lots more stuff. So let's get straight to Gary and Richard. Gary and Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And I like Gary's new background he's got there on Teams.
Yeah,
this is a built-in Teams one, is it?
Yeah, it is. So for those listeners,
Yes.
I'm sitting in front of a virtual office which is coloured in purple, and purple is the Pantone colour of the year. This particular purple. So it's new. They've set a whole set of new Teams backgrounds out this week, all around the Pantone colour of the year.
You mean to say no one's declared that they own that particular colour yet?
Yeah, well, no NFTs. Yes.
Well, that's at least when you redecorate, you don't have to. It changes to the next colour of the year. You don't have to get your roller out.
No, just switch backgrounds. I actually quite like this one. It's quite good. People have complimented me on my TV set. It's in the background.
We need to get Media Center photoshopped into that one. Media Center. Actually, I saw a funny. I didn't have this in the notes, but I did see. Yeah, remember Charlie Kindle?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Who's now Amazon, I think, isn't he? Or he was at Amazon. It wasn't Microsoft. It was. Yeah, it was the.
So where he is now, actually.
Father of home server, you could say.
Yeah, definitely.
Windows Home Server, yeah. Well, he's updated his MCE controller app, and I thought I recognise that he tweeted the link out, and he first wrote it in 2004, so nearly as long standing as your MCE mouse app.
Yeah, I think he preceded me, didn't he? Just.
Yeah, so there are still people using these the Media Center and tools, especially around the home automation stuff. If only we ever had that vision they've ever come to of the fully integrated home solution, media solution, instead of now we've just got apps for everything, with subscriptions for everything else, and all over the place.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there you go. Media Center. Last week we talked Vista. This week we talked Media Center. I'm not going to talk Vista this week though. Although I might mention it, Windows 8.2.
Okay.
Maybe that more on that later. So we've got plenty to talk about this week. We've got some Windows Insider changes coming, or clarifications perhaps on the channels we could talk about. We've got some HoloLens news, Flutter, and some other topics as well. So let's start with the HoloLens. So I don't know whether, Richard, is this a story that you've followed?
Yeah, I have been following this, and I have to say it's not something which I've chosen to write up because it seems to be very uncertain. It's one of those single source stories you worry about. This is it was reported in Business Insider, I think was the place that did the first reporting. It's then appeared in many other places, and apparently a source within Microsoft has said that the HoloLens 3, I think it was codenamed Calypso, was it? The team has been disbanded, and that project's been effectively cancelled in favour of a headset from Samsung. So the HoloLens concept of having the sort of standalone headset computing may have been axed. Now, what's interesting about this story is Alex Kipman, who of course is the father of the HoloLens, was quite quick to get on Twitter and say, "Don't believe what you read. It's all fine." I had a talk with a few of my sources, not at Microsoft, but who work in the VR industry, who said this is news to us, and it would be a real problem if it was cancelled, because we're already selling HoloLens 3 solutions to people. We're selling solutions based on the fact there will be a HoloLens 3.
Yeah.
So the rejection was this would set us back years if this is true. Would also open the door to Magic Leap as well. So yeah, it's a weird one. HoloLens 3 being axed. I mean, it's always been a bit of a niche thing, and Microsoft does have a certain reputation for axing things after a couple of goes at it. Yes, there you go. That's Ian with his HoloLens 1 on. So would seem to be a slightly odd thing to do, because I mean they have promoted the HoloLens really hard. I mean, really hard. The last few years, you've seen it everywhere. It's been on every presentation. I think it would be. I mean, I can see how the HoloLens 3 may not be what you might expect. They might be going down a different path than the augmented reality path, perhaps going down more the path of having a camera and things appearing on in front of your eyes, much like perhaps Google Glass did, possibly. But yeah, it's interesting. And as yet, I've not seen any other sources than Business Insider, unless you have.
No, I haven't. No. Although the Business Insider one did say they've got 20 current or former employees that they sourced in their article. So if you believe that, then they have a well-sourced article there. And it seems to be a lot of the issues is around them internal infight, isn't it, between the direction? Do they go one way? Is it consumer? Is it enterprise? Is it working with Samsung? Is it working standalone? And that seems to be where that's causing a lot of people to sort of get fed up and leave.
Yep.
And it does sound a familiar story, doesn't it? Where Microsoft have an early lead on a product category, they don't nail the direction of it, and then other companies come in and do nail it, and and Microsoft end up being and also running that platform. I mean, Windows mixed reality, which is the occlusive headsets that I really enjoy. They've done nothing with it other than a few maintenance updates and a few minor tweaks to it in 3-4 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's fairly safe to say mixed reality is probably pretty much dead now. I think that's a relatively safe bet. But HoloLens, that'd be a strange thing. And as you say, I think it would be, if this is true, and I'm going to put a massive proviso of saying I'm not convinced it's true yet, and I hope it's not. It'd be very sad, because I'm pretty sure that another vendor will come out and do it properly, and will also say, "Oh, look, Microsoft had the idea first, and now it's been done properly by Apple or by Samsung or by somebody else or Google." And you think that's just a real shame. And Microsoft does have form. I mean, we all remember the band, which I think they terminated way too soon. Remember, issues with. I mean, crikey, there's Media Center, and so there's lots of examples you can think of where Microsoft has killed a product line, or not pursued it as hard as they might, and then somebody else has come along and done it better. Which hopefully the HoloLens will not fall into that, and there will be a proper follow-up to the HoloLens 2, rather than just a jumped-up sort of VR headset. Yeah,
it just. Like you said, it's kind of there's two separate areas, which they're all the same mixed reality platform, aren't they? There's the HoloLens type one and the VR type one, and they had a really good platform with that, and they just seem to be not happy to just to not do much with that and focus on the enterprise HoloLens market, which is fair enough. But it just seems a shame that they had something. They still got 5% market share on Steam VR.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they did, and so some of the Windows headsets are still very, very good. I mean, the Reverb was an amazing headset, but as you say, there's just not been the development. We've seen the 3D stuff be pulled out of Windows bit by bit. It's being stripped out of it from the early Windows 10 Creator Editions, and it's I mean, as you know, I was never that convinced that they were that committed to Windows MR, but the HoloLens, it's been in everything that they've done for the last couple of years. It'd be a huge thing if they backed away from that, or released what I would say is frankly a half-assed product. I'm sure they won't do that. They seem to have been going in the right direction.
Yeah, and then they have come out and said that that's not true. That they are working on the HoloLens. Yeah. And Alex Kipman's been on there as well, but it seems this some partnership with Samsung is obviously caused some internal issues. Now, it seems to me quite a smart move to team with someone like Samsung, because they're excellent at delivering hardware across to worldwide markets, whereas something Microsoft haven't always been that good in. So, but yeah, I can imagine that there's a group within there that thinks they can do it themselves within their own division, as in, they're making these headsets already, and another perhaps a group thinks it should be a platform rather than a device. But even so, whatever happens, it just seemed to be there's a lot of internal wranglings going on, and at a time when just about everybody's trying to get in on this metaverse thing, and and it's becoming a big thing. and the next thing, and as it's been claiming for some time. So yeah, it seems to be the worst possible time to have these internal issues.
Although, do you think, speaking of the metaverse, I mean, with Facebook's latest or Meta's latest set of results, do you think they're going to perhaps pull back from that and focus more on social media engagement as opposed to the wonderful world of the Oculus, or the former Oculus and now the Meta, in favour of their core business?
Yeah, I was going to. That's something else I wanted to discuss, actually, because I think Facebook got hit pretty hard, didn't they, in their results this week?
Huge, yeah, massively hit hard. And again, I mean, let's face it, as a social media platform, it's being overtaken by other platforms. It's the way of the ITT world, and its user base are aging. It's it's known as the platform that I might use, but I'm pretty sure my youngest child would not go near it. That they're more about TikTok and other platforms. I wonder if Facebook are going to have a good hard think and think, well, is the metaverse actually the right call? Because there's a lot of hype involved, and the problem is the headsets are still very ungainly. I mean, I like VR, as you know, but I can see how the headsets are definitely ungainly at the moment.
Yeah, they are, and it's still a very niche thing, isn't it? Whereas the social media isn't. You can never say that's a niche thing, but yeah, you're right. I mean, in this house, there's 4 of us. Only my wife uses Facebook now. I stopped using it, and my sons have never used it. And for them, it's a system for old people.
Exactly, and I think that's the issue that Facebook are facing. It is now the system for old people. Young people aren't using it, and that's when you're so dependent on the growth of that user base, to have a whole generation now saying, yeah, we've now moved on. That, I think, is I don't know how you turn that around, really, but it'll be very interesting few years. I mean, I think we all remember how quickly things like MySpace disappeared, or when I say disappeared, as in faded into relative obscurity. I mean, I think Facebook is big enough that won't happen quite so quickly, but it's going to be interesting to see what the reaction is, and I do wonder if there might be a step back from this whole metaverse concept, or if they'll treble down and go for it.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, in some respects, it probably is this could be or is the next big thing. But if you put all their bets on it, then in the meantime, on some of the other platforms like TikTok or whatever, it could be eating their lunch. But I suppose they've got stuff like Instagram, which that does seem to be still doing pretty well on the numbers.
And taking snapshots of your lunch.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that, and I see some of the negative effects that you see on people, and I wonder how long we can go on with this inward-looking system of social media, of people sharing things that aren't, fake things, and snapshots that are the best case thing when people don't actually, they're not necessarily projecting real life, and I think that has a negative effect, especially on young people. So I'm not sure it's how long we can go on with this system, but yeah, this is definitely an age-old thing that's going to carry on, isn't it? But you said the losing numbers on Facebook, is it going to make they go back to Facebook and start concentrating on that, or double down on the metaverse type thing? I don't know. But it certainly seems a shame that Microsoft has been perhaps at the forefront of this and potentially blow it just as things are getting massive.
Oh, that, yes. Just saying, while we've been speaking, I've just seen a post on Twitter, unrelated, which is good old Gustav Mons. Looks like he's managed to boot Windows 11 on a Surface Duo.
Oh yes, I've been following him quite a lot on this, because.
But as in actually boot to a desktop, although only one screen right now, but actually boot to a desktop, which is pretty impressive. Yeah,
he's doing fantastic work on that. I mean, he's the guy that worked on the Windows and ARM stuff, wasn't it? In fact, my Lumia 950 is running Windows 11 as well, and I think that's a lot of the stuff that he worked with, and I think it's fantastic that this is coming. I've still got my original Surface Duo, so I'm quite happy to give that a try.
It's amazing.
And it just shows you really what an amazing platform Windows is, really, that the fact that you can get Although I know the original Surface Duo was kind of going to be running Windows at some, perhaps initially, but along it's been that was only in the early days. But amazing they managed to get Windows to run on that. And like same with the 950, you're getting an operating system that was never really designed to run on that, work on that, and it shows the flexibility of Windows really. It has its side effects, but this is a positive of it.
Yeah. It did seem to look quite snappy too.
It did.
Yeah.
So look at that video. It's very snappy.
And even it looks like he was showing off using a tool it looks very much like the tool used for deploying the Lumia 950 with Windows 11 as well. So with any luck, you can make it so that you can at least recover back to Android if once you finished experimenting. Because I'd definitely give that a go as long as it's not going to brick the device. I'd quite happy to see that. In fact, when you see it though, you can kind of see why Windows 11 never shipped with it initially anyway, because those little start keys are not ideal on a screen this size. Windows really needs a tablet mode.
It does, yes. If only it had a decent tablet, although I think that isn't there mutterings that's going to come, that's showing signs of coming back in Windows 11.
Yes, it is. In fact, this is one of the hidden features. Or potential hidden features in there, and this sort of leads into the Microsoft have been talking last week about how they're doing some potential changes or tweaks to the channels in Windows 11.
Yes, I mean I think this might be more clarification than tweaks, although there is one fairly major change coming. But yes, this is because there was no dev channel build this week, was there?
No, there wasn't. No.
But what they did do is, I think it was Amanda went online or posted to kind of clarify how it's going to work with the dev channel and the beta channel being like parallel active development branches. The dev channel being where engineers might just try stuff out and see how it works, while the beta channel might be a bit more stable and is more likely what's going to eventually make its way down to release preview. I think that's the main differences. And of course, that could mean you might get some stuff in beta which isn't in dev, and obviously dev that could be anything at all. So it's kind of like a warning saying this is the Wild West. There'll be our good friend the A/B testing happening as well.
Yes.
And as they noted, there'll also be hidden stuff in there too, which perhaps might still be in the build, which they don't intend people to find, but some insiders will track down, much like the task manager that we saw. But what I thought was the major thing is, I think the Ninja Cat's no more.
Oh, yes.
Correct. Yes.
The Ninja Cat is going away to be replaced by something tediously corporate that looks a little bit like a logo from a healthcare company. It's really disappointing actually. I mean, I've been no massive fan of the kind of free for all of the Ninja Cat and stuff. It's not really my thing. Prefer a bit more serious engineering, but it kind of speaks to I think going down this logo, which is kind of it's supposed to represent the three development branches of Windows. You've got release, preview, beta, and dev, all joined together, forming a heart because they love the community. Yada yada yada, all that stuff. It just feels a bit corporate, and I don't know. Now it's kind of one of the things that, well, you asked for the tech hats to go away. Well, they're going away, and this is what's going to replace them. I think, oh, it's just a bit okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how. I understand that the spirit of Ninja Cat will carry on, but it's just, it's the branding is so embedded in the insider program. It's even to the point where it turns up in the settings screen. You think, well, that's going to have to go away and be replaced by this, which I think is, you guys are Windows MVP insiders. I mean, I don't know if were the team aware this was coming, because a few people I've spoken to Microsoft were quite surprised and taken aback.
Well, certainly, I think the first was not about when it was shared last week.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything before that.
Yeah. No, I hadn't heard anything. And like you said, it was a clarification. Really had mentioned about this with the dev channel and beta channel, effectively. But the way they always positioned it in the past, or since Windows 11, really, was that the dev channel was things that they're working on. Beta channel was the next release of Windows, and then the preview was, things are about to hit, and that's really essentially what it still is. But what they were saying is they're going to use that dev channel for more experimental ideas. So
which is what we want, isn't it? Really? That's
yeah,
good.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we all. I think the best example of that was probably something like Sets, where Sets was there, we got to test it, and it never shipped. But they didn't frame it in the same way in those days. So it was a thing that was expected to ship, and then when it didn't, people said, "Oh, I want my Sets back." And when's it coming back? And there were there was a few people upset that they got to test stuff and that never actually shipped. But I'm quite happy for Microsoft to test things out in the dev channel, and they can get feedback and be good or bad, and then it can make its way through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem with Sets in particular was the fact it was plugged so heavily on stage, and then just quietly disappeared. And so, but they've obviously been very careful not to do that now. I think that there was a thing, a few years back where they were showing things off and saying, "Hey, we can do this and that and everything else," and then when they didn't deliver those things, they then got a serious, and correctly so, a good kicking for not doing that. Sets is a really good example of that. So I guess they're being more careful now. So I doubt we'll see anything trailblazed as keynotes that we see in the engineering thing. They're going to say, "Here's a new thing," but it's in the dev channel and it's an engineering experiment. So I think it's okay. But I was sad to see Ninja Cat go.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to trying some of these experimental features and maybe see them, see them in for a bit. Then they get withdrawn, then they get refined, and they get back into it, and then they'll hit the beta channel, and then eventually they'll get to users. So I think that's fine. It's just you're sad to see it. I quite like the new logo. To be honest, I prefer that. So I'm quite happy with that.
I like it, but I worry that it's a bit, because the whole thing about the Ninja Cat. I don't know if you read the Raymond Chen's his posting, his new old thing blog. I think back from 2016, where he wrote about it, or rather, I think Casey Lemson did a guest post on that about where the Ninja Cat logo came from, and that kind of speaks to a different Microsoft. And my worry is that with the new one, they might be slipping back into their old ways. It's very, very corporate. And, the Ninja Cat logo, while I was not a big fan of the Ninja Cat concept, it did speak to me of more freewheeling Microsoft, and Microsoft that was willing to take risks and just, and also pay more attention to its community. Whereas this current one, I don't know, it just looks like it would be on a health insurance website.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And some of these features which they mentioned are kind of hidden. A few people have seen them, and Microsoft haven't talked about them yet. So we don't know whether these are going to be introduced in. But there's been some things in the settings changes. I think we've seen things from like energy efficiency. I'm trying to think of the other ones that I saw that were new. There's been a few new features that aren't currently available that some people have managed to unlock. I know Microsoft don't like it when you do that because it messes with their telemetry.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good to see that they can switch these on and off, and then they don't potentially need a whole build as well to test them, to turn it on and off. They can just do that through the feature updates.
Yep.
So as a developer, I think I would be really happy with this because you're going to get a chance, you're going to get feedback way earlier, and it goes back to where we were with some of the earlier Windows releases, where we saw a lot of stuff early on, which was sort of fairly experimental. Maybe it didn't make the cut longer term, but you got to feedback on it, and you gave, and some of that feedback was quite harsh on some of the things they were trying to put in, and I think that might be the case here as well. Positive or negative, it's always good to get that really early on in before you've written too much code, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
Yeah, we some things like maybe like the people bar, which seemed a good idea, but nobody used, and then got dropped. Maybe if they'd done this, they'd seen the telemetry that people weren't using it, and they wouldn't have invested so much time in it, and they could have done other things. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what they bring new to it, and I'm quite looking forward to trying some new stuff out and sharing that on my build videos. But as long as I get in the A/B testing, you're never quite sure.
Exactly. Yeah, you can't be sure where you're going to be placed when the dice gets thrown.
I noticed I spotted this on Reddit, that the new preview version of Windows Defender is available now, but through the store, and that also includes an Android version of it as well. But I tried to you can install it. There's no problem. I tried to sign in with my Microsoft account, and it wouldn't let me. So it's region locked at the moment to US only. And you can't change your region in Windows either, and just and there it goes. So I did try that. We did get the new Windows Media. Windows Media. It's not called Windows Media Player. It's called Media Player, isn't it, for Windows 11? We did get that shipping to beta channel last week. I actually got it on my release preview one as well. So that's starting to roll out now. So that's in preparation for this February update. We've no idea yet when this February update that they talked about a couple of weeks ago is actually coming out, have we?
Not really, no. And the other thing, of course, is what's going to be in it. What's going to actually be in it in the end.
Well, it's going to have the little new weather entry icon and the team sharing thing. What was the other thing they mentioned? Media player and notepad. I think that was it, really, wasn't it? There wasn't a huge lot in there, but not delivered by a big build either. So it's just a switch, yeah. Which is how people are finding these new features.
Find the switch, turn it on.
Yeah, and I don't know whether they're just going through all these switch settings one at a time, switching and toggling, reboot, seeing what pops up. But yeah. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. There's a potentially new tablet mode coming, which you mentioned, Richard. That is one of those switches. Another one that I saw as well is when you're the way that they handle your taskbar when it fills up with icons, when you've got applications running and you end up with 2 rows. Apparently they're working on some more elegant ways of doing that as well. So that'll be good to see. That may be an A/B testing or thing that goes in the dev channel that we get to test out and then get the feedback, and then they can decide whether to put that in the final release. The other thing I saw as well, just briefly, we talked about NVIDIA ARM thing. That's all off now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gone. I think that was announced today, wasn't it? So I think both NVIDIA and ARM wanted to proceed, but I think it just got to the point that the regulators were just proving to be too difficult to overcome, and so I think they've called the whole thing off now, which is I guess good or bad depending on which side of the argument you stand. I think the announcement was made, I think, by SoftBank, who owns ARM.
Yeah.
So it was something like $40 billion. I think for NVIDIA were going to basically buy the designer. But yeah, it's all stopped. I think the major blocking point, it sounds like, was the FTC in the US. They were trying to block it, worrying that it might sort of stifle competition. But and also, I think the likes of Google and Qualcomm, Microsoft, I think they also complained as well, saying it's going to, cause some problems, and they weren't keen on NVIDIA being in charge over a company that really is quite a critical part of the supply chain. Again, just to be clear, ARM doesn't make chips. ARM supplies the designs for chips, which are then licensed by other people. And of course, that would have put NVIDIA in charge of the designs that are licensed for, I guess, almost every mobile device out there.
Yeah. Maybe it's time for Microsoft to get its checkbook out again.
I would think it would have the same problem, wouldn't it? Because
yes.
I can't think who could actually buy them if they're already involved in the tech industry. I guess that's why SoftBank could, but NVIDIA can't. I suppose I'm no expert in these matters at all, but it's I can certainly see why. Yeah, the likes of Qualcomm and Co would not be keen at all on NVIDIA picking up ARM. So that's. I don't know what happens next, really. I presume they just carry on as they were. I think ARM's got itself a new CEO, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. So I think SoftBank still want to offload them. So
well, yes, SoftBank want its money. It is an investor, so it expects to make a return on its investment. So it's going to want to offload them, definitely.
Yeah.
But I'm not quite sure who would do it now. Any ideas, Gary?
No, I mean, everyone I keep thinking of would be caught by the same problems. It's just, to say Microsoft would, although they are possibly less so than NVIDIA, because they're not other than Surfaces, they're not really a hardware. When it's not a chip manufacturer. Apple would get caught by the same problem because they are a chip manufacturer. Yeah, I mean, it really is. It is really challenging. I mean, you could imagine Apple acquiring them, and because they probably got the money to fight all the court cases, which I don't think NVIDIA did, to get through, not the court cases so much, but to go through the governments and all of the rules they've done.
But I would imagine Apple would be even less likely, for Apple to get hold of them, because of course, again, Apple's going to be in charge of the ARM designs, which is used in all the phones. Tricky one, really.
It is, yeah. It's really interesting. I think where they could go. I mean, maybe some are completely out of it. SoftBank was totally unexpected when they came in for it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we can always have a whip round.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
You buy them. Can the listeners with this your lifestyle buy them?
Yeah. We could do a quick crowdfunding thing, and then we'll sort that out. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention as well, development platforms. I did see today, I wanted to ask you, Gary, about Flutter for Windows. Flutter's been around for a while, but is this the first time it's now available so you can develop for Windows?
Yeah, I mean, there's been sort of very devious ways you could get Windows out, things running on Windows using Flutter, but it was really devious. This is a straightforward part of the deployment. And Flutter is a cross-platform development thing. It's a bit like Xamarin in some ways, different language base, its own language. A lot of people like it. A lot of developers out there have switched from going to Xamarin to Flutter. And it seems to have a lot. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of backing because it comes from another big player in the world of stuff. But it's good. I should say that's Google. So it's Google's basic equivalent to Xamarin, and it works pretty well. Well, it actually works really well, and it's interesting in that all your apps for all your platforms look the same, which is one of the things which I've often debated with people whether that should be the case, because there's a certain paradigm you expect when you're running on a certain device.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with Flutter, but you can make it look. But yeah, I mean, some really nice apps are in Flutter. I mean, you've probably used a Flutter app, to be honest. There's a lot of them out there. It's not, for me, I mean, it's not my language of choice, so I could write it, but I don't want to write it, but because it's not something I don't want to invest in learning another language at this time. But I can see why people would. I mean, it's a really, really good tool. It's uses a language called Dart, which is it's very optimized for writing apps. It's good, but this is the first time it's officially out for Windows, and that's good.
And do you think that would mean that we perhaps get more Windows apps out of it?
Yeah, and if you think about them, there are a large number of apps. There's, I think, over 500,000, or maybe just under 500,000 apps actually using Flutter and out there. So, and some of those are big apps. They're named. They're sort of your financial companies' apps and things like that. So, I think you might find some of these banking apps coming across and some of the other things, because it's going to be an easy port now. Very easy port, in fact.
Yeah, perhaps it negates the need for the Windows subsystem for Android. I thought that was quite interesting. So it's more choice for developers, which I suppose is which is always good. It's just, I suppose, a bit of a competition for Xamarin.
Well, because Xamarin's going away and being replaced by Maui, and that's taken a while. Sort of the whole Maui thing. It's good, but it's still very much in prototype stages at the moment. So, although I do know there's some pretty big players actually using Maui for development, but there's a big lag there. It's a typical sort of Microsoft change direction, move on to this, but it takes too much time to do it, so other people come in and fill the gap.
Yep. Yeah, they have done that before. Yeah.
I mean, I love the Maui concept. I think it's really good. I think it's going to be very powerful, but it's taken a very long time to get here.
Yeah, I'd say that. And also, if you look at the Flutter thing, it was very big on C++, your layers and things. Not much mention of C# or .NET at all there, which it's I think is I think an indication of where Google's gone with this. And it's also worth pointing out that with Flutter, the developers can, if they want, hit Win32 and com.
Yes, they can. Yeah, they can.
Although, of course, as soon as you do that, you sacrifice your cross-platform. But it is there, so you can really optimize those apps for the Windows desktop if that's the way you're going. But I don't know, Gary, are there many people actually doing purpose-built Windows desktop apps anymore, or are they all mainly either repurposed mobile ones or even just websites?
A lot of websites, the web stuff now. Certainly, big line of business apps have gone fairly. A lot of them are going website based. I've seen a lot of Blazor actually be used for line of business apps now. And also and React and some of the other SPA type technologies. But yeah, so I think that, I mean, obviously consumer apps have gone very much what they call single page architecture SPA, which is sort of like React.js and some of the other toolings, which means they all run in the web browser. So the back ends don't have to be too powerful. But yeah, I mean, that's not been quite so much the case in line of business apps, which have tended to be still server bound, because they tend to have a lot of big servers lying around somewhere, or they can use something like Azure to run it on. So yeah, I mean, I think that's where it's gone, and you don't tend to see many apps written specifically for the desktop anymore. I don't, Ian, you've obviously got experience from that, from how your business runs or your company runs. I suspect that you're seeing that as well now. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, I mean, it tends to be it tends to be a lot of web, although I'm dealing with one major application that's a big customs thing for UK customs, obviously a big deal at the moment, and it's completely written in .NET with a .NET server background and a .NET client. So still seeing that stuff, and you've actually made a nice change to see a nice simple .NET installer actually.
I guess that sort of thing is where you still possibly need the power of the desktop to run it and that sort of thing. But I'm seeing a lot less of that now. I used to get a lot of work like that, but just don't see it anymore. A lot of back end stuff though. Really, a lot of shifting to being processed on the back end with very lean front ends. Yeah, interesting to see. Well, that's hopefully more stuff for Windows consumer type stuff. Now, the next story that I was going to ask you was one for you, Richard. You said Peloton, they make the exercise bikes, don't they? And it's not just the bikes; it's the whole ecosystem. But they've been in the news a bit.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they put out their results today, and it was a bit of a horror show, to be honest. I think that they lost almost $500 million in the last quarter, some colossal amount. So Peloton, for those who haven't experienced the delight of these things, they're basically smart exercise bikes, and the deal is you buy this exercise bike device. It's got a screen on it, and then I think you pay a subscription as well.
Yeah.
So they demand for them soared during the pandemic. When it all hit and everyone was at home, everyone began buying Peloton bikes. So I think as time's gone by, if you wanted one, you've probably got one now, and people are starting to return to work and perhaps not use them in the way they did. So we're seeing the issue, the problem of the subscriptions perhaps not being renewed. They've cut the price massively. I think that's gone down to it's dropped, I think, by something like 20%. They cut the price last year, and I think they've had a reshuffle of their management today, but yes, they've made a fairly massive loss, and now we're looking to see who's going to actually buy them. I mean, Amazon could buy them. I think Nike is in the cards as well. I mean, crikey, I've even seen Oracle being listed as a potential suitor. That seems to be a little bit insane. That's exactly. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how that subscription would if you have to like a 55-page form to work out which subscription you actually want? But
you're going to pedal it with both legs and one leg. You can make check with the subscription model. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's just fascinating. Again, this goes back to what we were talking about with Facebook, is kind of seeing a darling of maybe a year or two ago just crashing so dramatically. I mean, I wonder if the likes of the Zwift stuff have perhaps taken over a bit of maybe Apple Fitness Plus as well. All these things are, I think, are factors. But yeah, the demand has crashed, and it's just quite surprising seeing how rapidly it's fallen actually.
Yeah, it's one of those stories where things simple things could cause major issues for companies. I think the main trigger point here has been a couple of TV episodes where people have had heart attacks while on Peloton machines. And they haven't actually said they're Peloton machines, but they're kind of easily identifiable as that. And that's the sort of thing which can really affect a business.
I think actually I had a bike that I had for quite a while and started using it about 3 or 4 years ago, and then I think it was last year. It basically I ran it into the ground and it kind of collapsed. So I went to buy a new bike, and I did look at the Peloton stuff, but it just didn't seem to make any sense to me. Perhaps I'm not hardcore enough user. I can see it on TV whether they're being egged along by encouraged by some online person on it. But for me, I don't use it like that. So I just didn't want to pay one, for the premium for the device, and two, for the subscription. It was a subscription that put me off, and I just bought a normal exercise bike with an LCD display on it, and I used my Samsung watch and I use my HoloLens to watch a bit of Netflix while I'm on the bike, and that's enough.
Well,
for me.
That is exactly what I do too. I've got an exercise bike as well, and I just use just a tablet and just watch from TV, and that's fine. And use my fitness watch. So I've never fully understood why you'd want to have these colossally expensive devices and then have to pay per month.
Yeah, that's what got me. Yeah,
which is, I know it's obviously, it's a very good program. You have instructors and things appearing, so that all needs to be paid for. But it just seems like I can imagine people, especially now with, the current cost of living increase is happening. You're probably looking at thinking, do I need this subscription? So yes, I guess the glimmer of light for Peloton, because obviously its market capitalization its value has dropped so dramatically. It's going to be a relatively snip. It's going to be quite easy for someone like Apple or Amazon or whoever to just buy them, because they're worth a lot less now than they were a year ago.
Yeah, not one probably for Microsoft then.
No.
Okay. I can't. That one I definitely can't see. Although
yeah, I think after Nokia, Microsoft won't be buying any companies like that for a long time.
Yeah,
but then again, they are buying Activision, so maybe you could have a Peloton connected Xbox where if you pedal, you get more stuff in Call of Duty.
So I could actually see that.
and then they might relaunch the band as well.
Yeah,
and the mixed reality headset to go plug it all into.
Exactly. Who needs a Peloton screen? You just put a very sweaty headset on.
This is exactly what I one of the thought I thought of doing this, apart from the fact that it just seems to be too ridiculous. The HoloLens actually works quite well because you just get a virtual Netflix screen, so it's just using it like using a tablet really. It's just I didn't have a tablet in the garage at that point, so where the bike is. But it's the subscription. It was that subscription model that got me, and I know that some people, if you're really into your fitness, and then that is a key point into it, and so I fully understand that. But I think, like you said, into lockdown, people bought them because they were stuck at home and couldn't go to the gym, and now a lot of people I know are just they've gone back to the gym now, so you don't need to spend that money, and like you said, cost of living and everything else. And you look at all these subscription services you've got, and I think a lot that's going to happen to quite a lot of other companies, I would imagine, that are going to look at the subscriptions. The Spotify, Amazon, Netflix. We're going to be looking at all these.
Yes. Netflix has not had the greatest. Hasn't had the greatest subscriber numbers either, because of course all these services had such a big push during lockdown. Of course now people are perhaps thinking, well, perhaps don't need this quite so much.
Yeah, maybe I can go out and do things.
Yeah.
Well, we won't be charging any more for this podcast, so that's which is. But on the other hand, we also won't be being bought out by Amazon, Netflix, or anybody else either. At the same
Spotify
time.
are always on the lookout for a podcast or two.
Yeah, I think we're probably not offensive enough at the moment. we could tone it up a bit. So it's interesting that it's all that consumer stuff, and you're right though. You mentioned the ban. Every time I mention that ban, I think Microsoft just got out of that ban just too early. They should have just stuck with that, and I think.
They should have stuck with it. You look at Apple, and the Apple Watch was a bit of a joke for the first two versions. It was, this horrible thing came out, and it was a little bit of a joke, and now everyone's got one. You know, they're all people have overcome the whole. It looks like a weird thing, and now everyone's got one. So it's just I do wish Microsoft had stuck with that, but then again, I guess because they dumped the Windows Phone, the whole department was getting a bit weird. Perhaps missed opportunities. Never mind.
Yeah.
If only we had a center where we could record the media from these things. It'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not that I'm bitter at all. You understand?
No, definitely not. No. No. Where else have we got? Oh yeah, still we've got next week we should be talking Power Toys on the show, so you've still got time to get questions in. So we've had a few questions in now. So yeah, we're going to be talking Power Toys with the program manager for Power Toys team at Microsoft. So we will be. So we've got some questions in. So you've still got time to get your questions in. I can get them over to Clint this week. That'll be great. And a couple of videos I've got. I did a video of how to use Miracast with Windows 11. So kind of I've looked in the past, but I've done a new one for Windows 11. So actually, it worked to my Samsung Smart TV, and I'm sure it never used to, but it does now. So I don't know what's happened. I don't think my TV's had any updates, but somehow it now projects. It didn't used to. It used to only show up on the Xbox or another PC, but now it works on there as well. So I quite like that. That Miracast, it's quite a handy function. So another video on that one, and I'm working on another video of Windows 8.2, or is it Windows 9? Just look at that at the moment. I do enjoy playing with Hyper-V. Right, one more thing to Gary, we have to ask you. When's your car going back?
My car goes back on Friday, and I haven't got a new car yet.
Oh no!
And it's not arriving Friday, so I've got possibly two options at the moment. I'm still thinking that the one I've kind of chosen and is out there, I really want to go for. But if that's delayed much longer, I will have to go and get something else in between. So I'm still not going to be able to say what I've got possibly until next week. But the problem at the moment is certain parts aren't available because of the component shortage, and it's becoming a real issue for all manufacturers across the board. I mean, it's not just these people. I mean, I'm hearing that there's a major issue with air conditioning units at the moment. The heating elements for air conditioning units, and in all sorts of cars, Jaguars, Kias, Mercedes, all sorts of people seem to be having problems getting the supply. And it sounds like there was a whole batch of very dodgy ones of these given out to manufacturers, which just don't work. Whether they actually are genuine parts or not, that has been rumoured. I don't know. I mean, that's something. But obviously, at this time of year, you want your heating to work. So that would be one of my hold-offs before I get my whatever next car I do get. The heating's got to work in it. So that's the issue at the moment. But there's a fair few clues on my video channel as to which one I'm going for. But
and the problem is you're committed to a lease period, aren't you? So you can't just think, oh well, okay, this will be fine for 6 months. You know, if you make a compromise because of availability, you've got to live with that compromise.
Yeah, 3 years. We've got 3 years basically. And it's got to be right. I mean, I've done so many criteria going through to get this one, and I could have just extended the iPace and probably should have done, but obviously committed to that when I thought the other car was going to be available. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. I'm probably going to be carless. Well, I won't be carless because we've got the MG ZS EV here as well, which we can use, but obviously that's a lot less range. But yeah, that's in other stories actually that we are replacing the ZS EV with another ZS EV, and we've actually got back the same amount of money we paid for the ZS EV after 2 years.
Oh, that's not bad.
Nice.
I mean, admittedly, you got a lot of launch discounts when we got that, but yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah.
So and that way we're getting a much bigger range vehicle for that, so that'll be useful when that comes in. But that's delayed because of component shortages, so that's probably not going to be till May, June time. It was originally going to be March, But yeah, it's I mean, I'm very hopeful next week I will actually know that I've got a car. I mean, there's lots of opportunities with me out there, because there's loads of subscription services now which I can do just to get a month's hire thing, and people like Tom to that who can do a month's hire thing, and that's what's actually a lot of my friends who've had iPaces for 3 years and have come to the end of the leases have actually done. They've just gone into sort of short-term leasing of an electric car until they can get one they really want.
Yeah,
they want in them.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting when you look at what's happening with this coming model year. Most of the manufacturers are cutting components out of the builds, and all cutting to specs. And as BMW actually went back to dials on some of their cars.
Yeah, I think that was my sister was buying a BMW the end of last year, and you could get it now with a dial, or you could wait, and she waited, so she's got hers now. But yeah, they gave you the option.
No, I mean the wiring trend, and we mentioned this before, is things like the Zoe, where they've cut all the airbags out, or taken some of the airbags out, so it no longer gets an NCAP rating.
Yeah, that's quite so good. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, you sort of think, what would you actually cut? I mean, they did originally just cut the wireless charger, but that came back in when they took the airbags out.
So I think I'd rather have the airbags and
I think the parts are slightly skewed there, but it does seem to be the case. I mean, certainly the iPace, the new version of the iPace hasn't got so many cameras and lots of stuff missing on that respect. But I mean, you can possibly live without things like cameras and stuff like that. Though I probably wouldn't with the iPace, because it's such a big car for maneuvering around. But the lack of heating, which seems to be a key, a thing which is coming up on a lot of cars being released at the moment. What people. And what really concerns me is that it appears a lot of manufacturers are actually delivering cars where they know the heating's not working.
Right.
And they're going to do a recall and fix it, which I think that's really bad.
It's not good, is it? Yeah.
But yeah. So I'm quite excited about whichever car I do get, but it's going to be good.
It's because I ordered a few servers last year, back in November it was. And they said, the manufacturer said there's going to be a delay because of the chips. And actually, I'm still waiting on a couple, and they were from HP, and they just can't get them to us. I've been now told April, and we've since changed our order to a Dell one, which is the same kind of spec and everything, but they just purely because they were in stock. But but even that was like a month and a half out or something like that. So these shortages it doesn't seem to be as bad on the PC side of stuff, but certainly on the server component side, it still seems to be a major issue. And I don't know whether it's the CPUs or what is causing the blockage, but certainly HP's. I've tried a few times since November and different channels, and HP's just can't get them. So I don't know whether what's causing it, but it's definitely still an issue.
I think it's everything. I mean, it's anything from memory, CPUs. I mean, don't feel too bad for the actual chip makers. I mean, they are still making money hand over fist, but it's just they simply can't keep up with the demand. I mean, there were a few plants that closed down during the pandemic. They've reopened, but there's just a backlog. But it's everything. I mean, as Gary said, it's I mean, we're feeling the pinch from chips, but I know at least one EV car maker's told me they have problems getting even connectors. It's everything is just everything is just short, and it doesn't look like it's going to end really until I think next year. Now it just seems to be an ongoing problem. I mean, good luck getting hold of a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, and as you say, it's everything. Lenses appear to be a real issue. I know head-up displays in cars have been affected, but other things have been affected by that. I was hearing that microscopes are actually in short supply at the moment. So it's really, and as you say, Richard, it is purely because people cut the orders during lockdown, and some of these companies didn't survive that cutting, or they couldn't. They had to mothball their own supplies, and it takes time to pick it back up, and their suppliers haven't got supplies, and it's really, really challenging.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I've got another challenge this week, which is something I've never had with a car before. Is actually disconnecting myself from my car. Yes,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because obviously I've got all the
fully integrated
services, and had the over-the-air updates and the mapping, and there's so many services which are linked. My car is linked to, and the one which I almost cleanly forgot about but it's really important. I might catch a lot of people out. Is if you've signed up for some of the council car parking schemes, where they're app based, because a lot of those are actually auto pay if you don't pay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and they're done on your number plate if you've actually signed up for them. So if you handed the car off and someone else has got that number plate now, they could just drive into the car park and drive off, and you're left paying the fees.
Yeah, that's a good point. That because I mean there are, even for a non-EV vehicle driver, there's so many apps now that you get just payments in car parks and places around when you go around. So I think that there's a whole row of them you've got to go through and take your credit card, your number plate out of the app.
Exactly, yeah, and it's stuff like the London congestion zone charging, and there's stuff like the dart for crossing. It's all based on you just get scanned, your plate gets scanned, and then bang, you get charged. Yeah, it's
just why we dart for crossing. I better sort that one out as well.
There we go. Exactly. Well, yes, I mean, when we got rid of our last car, and as you say, it was a real pain to go through, because you kind of think of the obvious stuff, because whenever you get a rental car, you always find the last person's contacts are in the car still. So you think, must do that, but you forget about everything else. Yeah, it's a real pain. Gary, I think there's a business there.
Yeah, there must be somewhere along that. Consolidation of this stuff would be good.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's going to happen, because we've gone the other route now.
yeah, things just get more and more. Get more and more spread out. Right. Well, we shall keep following your Twitter then to see what you do get. So, Gary, remind us where you are. At
Gary with 2 R's WMA on Twitter, and that'll tell you everything else. I do YouTube and Fascinating Tech and everything else. We'll all be listed on Twitter.
Excellent. And we'll follow that so we can find out what you are driving next week. And I just want, actually, while we're talking about Twitter, I got a direct message from someone the other day who was really appreciative of the interview we had last week. Brilliant.
And you said that was very, very informative. So it's good. We'll have a few more of those.
Oh, excellent. And Richard, where can we find you?
On Twitter, mostly at Richard_Speed. Normally talking about Lego.
Oh, have you seen the new Lego? My son's going to pre-order it. The new McLaren F1 Lego.
Is it a rocket?
No,
Nitrogen.
It's not. Yeah, I know. I didn't think it was your thing, but it's the Lego Technic McLaren. It's the 2022 car mock-up anyway, but I've seen it today. It's a full Lego Technics one with working suspension, working engine, as in when you turn the wheels, the pistons go up and down. I think it's 1,600 pieces. It's about 140 quid, something like that. It's out in March. It looks fantastic.
Well, I've built myself a vehicle assembly building, so that's fine. Yeah.
So you could assemble it in that building.
Well, it's quite a small one. It's got a mini Saturn V.
Oh, that sounds good. You'll have to talk to Charlie Kindle, because apparently he's working for a space company now.
Oh, there we go. Great.
There you go. Yeah. So anyway, I've persuaded my son to get the Lego. I think he's probably going to get that McLaren one because it's right up his street. So I'm at Harris Dixon on Twitter. So we'll be back next week with our special guest. So don't forget to get your power toys questions over to us. So we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Yeah.